riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
All right, guys, we're back. Part 2. Matthew Rogers here. We're going to get into his setup. Is that what you said, Brad?
Yeah, I want to dig into, it's real fascinating what I've been told on how he uses minnows.
Oh, yeah.
His minnows.
So, yeah, I mean, he's just not hooking them through the back or through the eyes. Or how do you hook a minnow on a live scope setup?
So I got to give a little credit to my buddy J.R. Oldham. He was a guide on Stockton for years, one of the most knowledgeable fishermen I've ever met. And it's something that, I kind of come up before with my head, but, he showed me that it really does work. Mm-hmm. But what I do, and I do it pretty particularly, really, it doesn't matter if that minnow dies necessarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's still got a natural smell, and the fish are attracted to it. But I take it and I squeeze these gill plates and hold him behind. I hold him from behind his backside. I squeeze these gill plates, and I just watch my hook go down until I kind of feel that gullet go through the gullet and then come out his side. When you kind of go through it, it's like gut shooting a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Thing will run off, and he lives. I mean, he'll live for a little while. That minnow will still kick, but I go down through the side, and what that does is, especially if you get a long shanked hook, it allows you to bring that hook out at least 3/4 of the way out of his backside, and some people can't get it straight, or just depends on the hook you got, really. But it allows you, whenever those fish come up, I mean, they're curious, I think. When they're not reacting fast, they're curious, and they come up and just bump it.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you, whenever those fish just kind of come up and open their mouth and just barely bump it, you can get a hook in them.
What do you think they're doing when they're bumping it like that? Just getting it out of their area? Or?
Yeah, darndest thing. I was on Grenada, won a tournament doing that technique. Went back this spring for a Crappie Masters, and I had one on day one that I fished for probably 10 minutes. He kept stealing my minnows. He would literally steal the minnow, and I even had it hooked like that. And I watch them. They'll come up, especially, I don't know if they hit it with their mouth closed or what they do, but they hit it so hard, and you think, there's no way I missed them. They'll knock that minnow off, and you'll watch that minnow go float down, and then they'll come up and grab it after it's already off your hook.
I've fished Grenada so many years, of course, pre-live scope, spider rigging, and all of a sudden your poles would jerk down so fast, and you'll set the hook, and it's never there, and you're like, what in the world is going on here? And I've changed hooks, but live scopes stop you guys, like, they're just knocking it off the hook.
That's a high-pressure lake. Truman is getting to be a high-pressure lake, and where the big fish live in Truman, used to, if you pre-fished and caught a 1.5-pound fish, you're like, whoa, this is we need a fish in here. Now you're able to go through and catch all those 1.5-pound fish that you might have been able to grind out 7 of them for a tournament, and you'd only caught one. Now you can catch 5 or 6 of them, and you already caught them.
Yeah.
And especially in like stake beds or a structure that they're really using. You burn them up. It's changed fishing forever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, these fish here, there's so much lake here that you're going and finding fish that probably haven't ever even seen a jig.
Right. Yeah.
And there's bass fishing is super popular here. It's crappie fishing, and hopefully with this expo, it gives the lake a little exposure and shows that there's a lot of crappie in the lake. This actually is really healthy. It's got a lot of fish. It's got a lot of 7, 8, 9 inch fish in it. Where I was fishing, And I know even up there they were catching, there was 2-pound fish caught, and there was a lot of fish caught. So there's big fish and a lot of fish in here. It was just your certain techniques really excelled, and like Jerry Hancock's technique, and he fished with guides in deep water.
Right.
It worked out for him.
Yeah. We had Jerry on this morning, and I mean, it kind of sounded to me it went to his strength and deep water fishing, structure, standing timber, and deep water. And he even said that. He's like, this kind of played in my hand how these fish shut up the bigger fish anyway. But when you go into a new lake, and we get asked this all the time by people, is how do you go into a new lake and try to find fish? What is your day one starting up?
I think the best thing you can do, and I kind of get a little wild running all over the place, but when you go like this lake, like I was saying, I had a place, probably 20-mile stretch of one arm that I'd picked out, that if I went into a creek, I went into the back of a pocket that had a lot of deep contour, and I went and fished from the back to the front of it and didn't find any fish, then I might need to go find a similar pocket that had a flat or a ledge in it and go look along it. Then you start applying where you did find fish and didn't. I think pocket fish, main lake fish, and creek fish are all different.
Mm-hmm.
It's just whichever one you can get put together, whatever pattern you can get put together and apply, because then you get your high percentage areas. So you can catch scattered fish in a creek, or you catch a lot of fish in one of them pockets. It just depends. If the scattered fish in the creek are bigger, you're probably going to be able to go fish that area, but it's not a likely place you're going to catch all your fish.
Mm-hmm.
Your high percentage areas is generally what wins tournaments, especially a tournament like this where 2-pounders, catching 7 2-pounders wasn't realistic. Catching 7-pound-and-a-halfers, that's pretty realistic, and it's a good goal. You were able to go to an area and, like Jerry did, and catch them. He did it. He only needed to do it 2 days, and if he would have done it the first day, he would have blew it out of the water.
Right.
But he adapted and changed, and went to where they had found some fish the last day of practice. But like you said, it fit his style. That's what his process was. He went through and found stuff that worked to his liking. That's what a lot of the Elite Series bass fishermen do. They really just fish to their strengths, because that's all you can do. When you try to start doing stuff it's hard, way outside your...
I know that.
Yeah, when you going and dipping timber on Truman is just not your style.
Yeah.
Now, you can adapt over time. You can figure it out, and you get comfortable with it. But if you're not fishing comfortably, it's really tough. Every morning I'd start off with that long rod, and I really don't like doing that. I like fishing an 11-foot rod and a 7-foot rod. And fishing that super, super long rod, I was just so uncomfortable. It'd take me an hour to adjust back to it, even though it was the next day.
Right. You use braid or mono mainly?
Man, while I was down here, I was using a lot of canine fluorocarbon.
Just because of the clear water? Or?
Yep. Back home, on Truman Lake, I use 15 to 20-pound braid. It don't affect them. They don't, especially the fish I'm looking for. I'm looking for active, aggressive fish. But I do believe that fish that are real curious in like clear water, they see lines and stuff,
So fluorocarbon in this clear water this week.
100%. I do quite a bit of bass fishing, and I fished a tournament a while back, even on Truman. My buddy was throwing braid, and I finally talked to him. I mean, it was 3-1 on catching fish, and finally I got him to switch from using that braided line, and he started boating fish.
Well, you say K9 was a fluorocarbon you were using?
Yep.
What pound test is it?
I was using 6. I know a lot of guys that are shooting docks, they shoot with 2 and 4 pound line, or really, because it can come off the spool and go further. But for pitching and still using an eighth ounce bullet weight above my jig, I can flip it out there just fine with the 6.
That was my next. How are you setting up your single pole stick it?
So I think if you're gonna go with a splice, go ahead and don't, and go with a swivel. You can, just like a Carolina rig's done, put a weight on, tie a swivel on, and then tie on a fluoro leader, and then your jig. You might not have an 8-inch leader, but I think whenever you crimp, you're using fluorocarbon, and you take a split shot and crimp it, that's got a impurity now in the line, and it breaks.
Right.
And I think it's a lot easier for my setup when you're using straight, because I use a lot of braid to fluorocarbon when I want sensitivity.
Use like an egg sinker above that swivel, or
Yeah, I use tungsten bullet weights. Tungsten's just a little more sensitive. You don't have to have it, but lead's a little more malleable, absorbs some of the vibration, where tungsten transmits it up the line. There's times when the fish are biting that light. Like down here, they were biting that light.
right.
But whenever I do just use straight fluoro, I put a bobber stop on, I put my bullet weight, and then I put another bobber stopper on, and you can adjust that to wherever you need. Sometimes the shorter the leader, if you let down on the tension and let that bullet weight drop, it pulls it quicker. If you got 1.5 feet a leader, sometimes you can drop it after you pitch out and you get it to your fish's attention and you're pulling him up. You can drop that weight down, and that line has enough slack in it that it'll float for a minute. And just a little less resistance when they just barely touch it, lets it float into their mouth, and you can catch them. I've caught some fish where you pull when you get them up. They're just barely hanging in their mouth, especially black crappie. They just sometimes are really aggressive, and sometimes when they're not, they're not. They just
right.
I've watched them. I fished with Eric Cagle before on Lake Jordan, I think it was, and we were fishing for black crappie. And man, we'd be 40 feet away from him, and we'd cast, and he'd be like, "Don't stop reeling, don't stop reeling." And it was clean water. They wouldn't. Some of them wouldn't hit it till it got a foot from the boat, from the troll motor.
That followed that far.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was getting and going with people. That's one of the things, I learn stuff every day. I
was waiting on a call this morning, but
you wouldn't learn much from this morning. What not to do.
Speaking of chasing, you said you had a story about you was chasing down a fish at Grenada. I want to hear that.
So,
and did you know how big it was on live scope?
Oh, yeah.
Well, what was your guess of it?
This one was I knew it was a 2.5 pound fish, 2 3/4 pound fish. I could tell it was an absolute monster. Biggest fish it was in the area we caught our biggest fish pre-fish, and I fished with a really good buddy, Clint Pipes. Really good fisherman and a great buddy, and we were down there. We were having a blast. We fished that ACT, and we had a decent day one, but we lost probably 2 1/4 pound fish on top, and then we lost this giant. This big fish sat on this tree for probably 5 minutes, and it just, for the life of me, I couldn't get on him. Finally, when I did, my jig, and this is one of the worst things you can do for me, is whenever you get a fish's attention and it's swinging to him and he's on the other side of the tree, once he sees it and he starts to come up, if it floats into that tree, they just lose interest.
Right.
And it was weird, once he did that, and most of them do, it wasn't that weird. I see it's common. He turned around and he started cruising. But this one didn't cruise like all the other Grenada fish. They were
go back to that scenario real quick, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, I was key into that.
So when you got a tree and you're coming up to it with the live scope, I sometimes set myself up to the side so I can come across. If they're facing the tree, I might come across them on that side of the tree, but at an angle where it swings across where they can turn and follow it out away from the tree. Because when they follow it, when it comes over their dorsal fin, and they see it, and then when they come up to it, and then your jig floats into the tree against it, they have a hard time finding it. And whenever they, and they might find it, but it's just weird. It's laying against the tree, and a lot of people used to get hung up, and then they'd have a fish pull it off. Once I got live scope, I have not ever seen that. Truman, I'd get hung up and just barely get it off, and it's hanging there, and have a fish take it.
Right.
Now that I have live scope, that's one thing I've not ever seen. I don't know why, and hopefully sometime I get to see it so I can see what actually is going on. But I do know when it floats against that tree, there's a high percentage of the fish that just turn around and go. That big fish, finally, he turned around and it went. Unlike any other fish, that when they leave, they would spook, take off, and you couldn't keep up with them. This thing went out and floated. Just everything was just perfect. And I tried everything: minnows, hair jigs, plastics, and I use a wide variety of plastics: Bobby Garlands to Mid-Souths to just about everything. Bonehead. I took a Mid-South tube jig, even on Grenada, a super clear watercolor. It was Pillsbury, or no, it's Smoke, I think is what it's called. Cut it down to where it's pretty small, and something when I put it down there about the skirt opening up and flaring, that thing absolutely crushed it. And I'd fished for him for probably 15, 20 minutes.
And he turned down a minnow before that.
Yeah, he wouldn't even eat a minnow. He'd come up, look at it, and just swim right back down. And we're bringing him up. I got him up to the top of the water, and my buddy, I have an extendable net, but I don't think it was extended any, and he didn't have time. And whenever he got out there, I mean, I'm telling you that I don't know why he couldn't just fall into the net,
Right.
but he fell, backwards, back off the side, and went back down, and it was devastating because it was a giant, and that would have gave us a 3/4 to a pound more, and I think we had right around 1460 or 15 pounds. That lake is getting so much pressure. You really gotta be on your game to win on that lake now. And there's a lot of people that go there to practice to see big fish.
Right.
It's probably one of my favorite lakes, but they just had a tournament on Ross Barnett. I didn't get to go down there, and my buddy Josh Jones told me about how amazing a fishery it was, and he ended up winning that tournament.
Yeah.
But,
I talked to Josh a lot, and I kept telling him, come on, man, you got to come down here. You'll love it. Fit your style perfect. And that's one of the things he told me after tournament. Man, I absolutely love this lake. I was like, dude, you hadn't listened to me. I've been telling you that along here. And I'm going to tell you, you got to get down there, Matthew.
I'm ready. I'm ready to even get back out on Table Rock and kick my butt. One thing this week was the rain.
Yeah, speaking about that, the rain suit, you say he's going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, there's a new rain suit out, and it's by J.B. Langley. It's a company, and he also owns, his name is Bart Langley, and he owns J.B. Langley, the apparel company, and also Crappie Mafia, and they got an awesome tackle box we were just checking out.
Yep.
But this rain suit is the Altus rain suit, and it's unbelievable. The zipper does not let water through.
Well, some of those, I know, I looked at it last night. It's got the hood that comes down and goes over your paw cap.
Yeah, the hood is awesome. I love it. It's got an adjustment, and it's actually really nice that the elastic bands that you pull to adjust it, the button, they're actually already embroidered inside of the
material,
jacket, the material, and you push in on them, and you can adjust them, and you just push them and pull it back out, and it'll reset. But you can adjust that hood down, and it stays there. When you're running down the lake, it'll stay there, and it sheds water off the side. It's
even warmth. I mean, we're going into the winter season, and when that hood pops up and you're running down lake, 50, that air comes right behind you and goes right down your back.
Oh.
Was it like a seam for your hat? Like an inside seam you just push over and it comes back maybe an inch or so?
Not necessarily. It kind of just how it lays, and they have the right breathe the system with the hood. It breathes. The air that's coming in. I don't know how they did it. Some smart
NASA
people
stuff,
come
huh?
up. Yeah, some NASA stuff for sure. Rocket science. I mean, it's awesome. How that releases the air out the back, lets the suit breathe, and your hood don't fly off.
Mm-hmm.
It just really, all those little things, there's not a lot of stuff all over it to where when you're pitching that you're getting hung up on all your zippers. The zippers are all low profile. That's the thing. It's real low profile.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed weird about it. It had knee pads on it. Did you like the knee pads?
I do. I kind of thought, well, this feels weird when I first got it, and I'll be giving more reviews on it as it goes. I'm not the guy that gets on Facebook and as soon as I get something, I go blow it up, or I don't take in a lot of different sponsors. I usually slowly pick and choose what I like, and I hope I can work with them. And even if there's something that I don't like, maybe I can throw that idea at them and we can change something about something. It's something like, I think it's a must-have for me now, because I'm a full-time guide. I haven't been guiding here lately with the kids and whatnot and all the tournaments, but I got to have something that's going to keep me dry and warm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this week was I got it a day late from the pouring rain, but I got to test it in a good drizzle, and it was freezing cold.
It's nothing that can ruin your mood on a fishing trip than being cold and wet.
No.
That has to be the worst.
Your head's not there. You're more
You're miserable.
More focused about getting warm and getting out of it than you are in the game.
Yeah. You're wanting to get dry.
Now, I want to ask Brad a question. So what is the deal with, what do you do whenever those fish that you're longlining for and they're reacting, what do you do whenever they don't want to react? Do you slow down and spider rig?
I'm a long line all the way to 40 degrees. and then I'll have to probably spider rig.
Okay.
But there's tricks just like long lining, and there's days that they're just pure reaction. But movement of a boat, twisting a boat, and that's one of the secrets that I can let out now because it's not dangerous in tournaments like it used to be. I'm first to admit that. But one of my old tricks on long lining was boat control, and you just think of it going down a ridge line, but I would actually just slightly twist that boat, and what it did, sped those baits up and slowed them back down.
Well,
those fallen fish.
I just now thought of something. When I used to spider rig all the time, when you turn, that outside rod, and all of a sudden, bam.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking about, my casting the reel and the fish, and Eric, I just put it together why they used to bite. So they'd bite that outside rod because that bait would be getting taken away from them a little quicker, so they'd have to react.
Right.
I never even put that together until just now. You know?
And I think of it, it's like and I tell people when I talk a lot about long lining is that natural reaction of a lab dog. Whenever they have a ball in front of their face and all of a sudden it goes away, that reaction for them is to go chase it. Mm-hmm. And that's, I'm looking for a reaction bite.
Yeah. But you do change.
Yeah.
You eventually do something different.
Hopefully I'll get good at live scope one day.
Oh, don't let him lie to you. I'm sure he's a stick.
No. I'm a dead stick.
You're fortunate to live where you live. I'm fortunate to live where I live.
Yeah.
I got a lot of lakes that I try to get on and well round myself. It can just be kind of hard to make yourself go to a place where you don't know if you're going to catch them or not. There went the man, the myth, the legend, J.R. Oldham himself.
Yep. And, I think it goes back to we've discovered, last year was Hamilton, which was a extremely tough fishery, but it had some good fish in it. And like the Shepherds last year, they figured it out and brought in good weight, brought some really good blackfish in. There's so many lakes out here that haven't been touched yet, and you kind of touched on it, that these fish on these creek arms in Table Rock here are probably dying of old age because people are not fishing for them.
Yeah, for sure. Eric Hagel's one to talk about this, and we've talked about it. I've just, like I said, lost a little edge on my drive. But going to a new lake is what you should want to do because you should want to go push yourself to learn how to find those fish on new bodies of water.
Yep.
That's what makes you good at finding fish on new water.
Make you a better fisherman.
Is going to different lakes all the time. What you go to Egypt?
Yeah, I go to Egypt. It's about 45 minutes.
Yeah, I remember seeing his pictures on Egypt, and I always thought, man, I'd love to go learn how to throw a cork in the middle of like December and January.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. Again, we're about that no more. They shut the power plant down there.
Really?
Yeah, so I think all that winter fishing's pretty much out the window.
Mm-hmm. That's just a big part of it. Just having drive and just never stopping and always fishing as much as you can go and go other places. If you do like just fishing one lake, maybe catch your fish that you want to take home to eat. And then go try different stuff.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these guys that, he don't need any help winning tournaments, but he wants to come down and actually go long lining.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. That'd be a blast.
It's just something different, and that's what this sport really is. If you don't want to stand up and live scope all day or even buy a live scope, there's so many different ways still to catch these fish. That's unlimited.
100%. If I have a client that doesn't want to stand up and live scope, I'm going spider rigging because you can catch way more fish. Spider rigging or live scoping is just kind of a one-man deal. The one man can catch as many fish as he wants to try to catch.
Yep.
But the spider rigging, it's relaxing. You can sit down. You can sit down with two people. A guide. You can stand behind them, and they can catch fish. There's room for those techniques and new techniques and everything.
Yep.
You can't keep it at one thing. Live scope's an amazing tool, but it shows that there's people that are good with live scope, and there's people that are really natural fishermen, and it shows. I think coming to a lake like this is where it really separates the men from the boys, and who's been putting their hard work in.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Sure.
Well, appreciate your time, Matthew. I can't wait to do some more episodes with you in the future.
We're already done. I was having a blast.
Come on, spit out some more then. We got all day.
A big thing about what the trails do that I fish is they don't go to the lakes that are going to push me and excel me on clear water. We've kind of, American Crappie Trail and Crappie Masters kind of fish, this certain region where we fish, Grenada, Truman, a lot of dingy water lakes. And I know the Crappie USA goes to like Cumberland and all these different lakes. And I think if you can find your time and the money to be able to go do that, but be able to fish several of the trails and different lakes, it well rounds you. And that's a big thing about a lot of the Elite Series bass fishermen. They're just well rounded. You can take John Cox out of Florida and take him on to St. Clair, and he's just fine.
Yeah, Jacob Wheeler come from up north, go dominate in the south,
and now we're starting to grow. These trails are starting to grow. They're able. I think they're starting to get where they can go to different places a little more. And Crappie Masters has been adding different stuff on. I actually just seen there's an invitational, and I'm not sure how to get invited, and hopefully I can. But it's a Major League Fishing format on Grenada coming in like May. I think it's May or somewhere in there, and that'll be awesome. Then it totally changes the strategy. You don't go for 7 2+ pounders now. You might go for 40 pound and a quarters.
Right.
And I think that's going to give a new edge, because there's a lot of lakes in the country that don't just have monsters, and that should still have tournaments on those lakes.
Oh, yeah. Right. Don't count them out.
I think eventually you're going to see some tournaments hopefully pop up in like California and places like
That's
that.
what I want to see. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, I want to go out there so bad.
I want to see it get as big as bass fishing. I
Yeah.
don't know if it ever get there. It might. It's going to take a lot of hard work, but as far as expanding out west, up north even more, I like to see all that.
Well, and I've talked to Brad a lot about hopefully sometime the Crappie Connection has got the name to do filming, and you guys can get out and showcase. You guys have really got an opportunity to give the industry exposure that it's not pan fishing. This is a sport fish.
Absolutely.
We got to change that name to it. We've got to showcase what crappie fishing really is, because a lot of people don't get it. Grenada is an awesome place to showcase how big they are.
Right.
There's lakes that, like I was saying, are going to showcase how many you can catch, and different formats are starting to come out. We're growing. We're definitely growing, and the expo these last 2 years, that gives a ton of exposure. And I wish I had a lot of money where I could start something that kids that didn't ever get to go fishing, that that live in the city, that we could get something set up to start taking these kids and showcasing what crappie fishing is to them, or just fishing in general.
Get them hooked.
That's the future of it. We got the same group of people that have been fishing for years, and it's starting to grow now. You're starting to see new people come up into it. I think there's a lot of eager kids that are wanting to get into it. It's just going to be getting the right place, the right time, and
get the right people involved.
Yep, the companies are having more money to be able to sponsor more people. The industry's getting a lot bigger and better. I can't wait to see where it goes. This is one of my favorite things, is to get to come and see everybody and be around the industry itself. But
23, 30 more years, 53, it'd be a long way.
Hopefully
It'd be a long change.
It doesn't take that long, okay? I'm not quite 53, but I'm getting there.
I understand that.
I love how it's changed, and I've seen a lot. It's just even about we've got to break down some barriers that's been set in place for a lot of years, and you see it more. And I can just look around even from the expo here, and you see different guys. They used to be just all grouped together. Well, you got this group of guys that's grouped together. Now everybody's kind of getting to the fact that, hey, we don't need to do that. It's not necessary. We need to support each other. From Crappie Now magazine, whatever gets people in this sport, we all need to stand behind it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure. A dominating factor in tournaments, one person dominating is it's fun, and then there's rivalries. But now this live scope's showing that anybody can get out there and put in the time and learn. They're learning in, let's say, 2 years what it took other people to 15, 20 years to learn. They're learning the behaviors. The only reason I knew what they did chasing that bait spider rigging is because I put it together what I've seen with the live scope. Without the live scope, I would have never learned that. Without electronics, I would have never known that there's trees that lay down under the surface of the water that somebody else maybe seen they were standing there years ago. Growth is coming, and it's going to be bigger than what I think I ever imagined it would be.
Yeah, the sky's the limit.
And you're young enough to find out later down the road, that's for sure.
I'm sure this guy's going to be holding a lot more trophies in the future. Can't wait to see it, and can't wait to do some more stuff with you, Matthew. I mean,
yes, sir.
I've been a fan of yours since the beginning, and
same here.
Looking forward to doing more with you, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back on again with you guys sometime. Man, I've been a ghost, hard to catch. I was going to stop by on the way back from Barnett, and I'm glad to finally catch up and get a show together with you guys.
Man, I'm pumped. Been wanting this one for a while.
All right. Anything else you want to add before you close out, Matthew?
Man, big shout out to all my sponsors.
Yeah,
the
go for
K9 Line, HH Rods and Reels, Dakota Lithium Batteries, Angler Support Marine, and my parents and my little Miss Trinity. I'm ready to get home again. I already seen the kids and hurry last night, but I'm ready to get back and see them all.
What about somebody want to come fishing with you? How do they get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me at 417-296-0062 or my Facebook, Rogers Guide and Gear. I've been a little slouch on some of it, but I'm getting back going. I'm going to have my boat back up and clean and running probably in hopefully a week or so, and then I'll be ready to all the tournaments are pretty well done. So this winter is going to be, wide open pretty much.
Awesome.
But about March, the tournaments start coming back, and it's really hard they're so stacked.
Yeah.
And between the three trails, it's really hard to find time to strictly guide.
Yep.
And I like to be able to be on the water quite a bit, and I guarantee that somebody's gonna have a fishing trip of a lifetime.
Most definitely. We appreciate you having on. Appreciate you coming on, talking crappie fishing to us. We're at the 2020 Crappie Expo here in Branson, and we appreciate you coming on for sure.
Yep. Subscribe.
Yep. Well, I'm Justin.
Brad Chappell.
And Matthew Rogers.
And I'm out.
All right, see y'all.
Holla.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel